Developing right now on Morning News Now, trading blows. President Trump calling off talks with Canada over this anti-tariff TV ad made in Canada, airing in the U.S., featuring the voice of former President Ronald Reagan. Meanwhile, the president walking back plans to send federal troops to San Francisco as immigration agents arrive in the area. On Capitol Hill, the government shutdown now in day 24, with Senate lawmakers not set to return until next week. And New York Attorney General Letitia James set to be arraigned today in a federal bank fraud case. We will bring you the latest. Also this morning, stunning allegations sending shockwaves across the sports world. Current and former NBA players, including Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups, are among more than 30 people arrested after 2 federal gambling investigations.
This is the insider trading saga for the NBA.
Violating the law is a losing proposition, and you can bet on that.
More on the elaborate schemes alleged in both cases. Plus, prevention and protection. Doctors urging people to get vaccinated as flu season begins. What you need to know to stay healthy as we head into the winter. And trick or treat, it might come as a spooky surprise. Halloween is now just 1 week away. But if you're still hunting for a good costume, we've got some ideas to die for. We'll show you some of the top costumes creep into the top of lists in Google searches. Can you believe that? Just a week away. Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. It's great to have you with us on a Friday. There's some good news. Joe's on assignment this morning. We're going to begin this morning with President Trump's abrupt decision to terminate all trade negotiations with Canada. The fallout comes after Ontario's government paid for a political ad to run here in the U.S. It features the voice of former President Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. Listen.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer.
In a post on Truth Social last night reacting to this, President Trump slammed the ad, which he called fake. And the Reagan Presidential Foundation had said the ad misrepresented Reagan's speech and that Ontario's government did not ask for permission to use Reagan's remarks. But Trump said, in part, quote, they only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court. The nation's highest court is set to hear arguments on November 5th about the legality of President Trump's use of emergency powers to impose these country-specific tariffs we've been talking about so much. We have NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joining us on this with more. Monica, good morning. So the Reagan Presidential Foundation says it's actually reviewing legal options over the use of President Reagan's voice in this ad. President Trump is no stranger to this type of tactic. He himself has posted videos of his political adversaries, in some cases even using AI-generated videos. But why did this ad cross a line for him? What is the Reagan Foundation wanting to do here? What are the ramifications?
Yeah, and it's unclear exactly what the president thinks is fake about this, because we looked at his actual address, of former President Reagan's address in 1987, and what he says there does line up with what he said in that speech. So it does not appear that it is something that has been manipulated, but the president clearly feels that it's been misrepresented in terms of the argument maybe that former President Reagan was making back then. This was about some tariffs that were slapped on Japan, and this was an address in which the president at the time was saying that he was nervous about additional protectionist measures and what it would do to the U.S. economy. But right now, when we're talking about the U.S. and Canada, of course, a really key trading partner, the U.S. and Canada have been going back and forth, and the U.S. has slapped Canada already with some pretty significant tariffs. Remember that there was going to be a deal that was going to be made, and then it was extended. But you had Prime Minister Mark Carney here at the White House just earlier this month. That discussion didn't yield any breakthroughs, but there's clearly been a lot of disagreement still on how this goes from here. The president clearly not happy about it. But as we have seen before, Savannah, sometimes he does make these claims about pausing all kind of trade, only to reverse it later if some discussions can potentially change that.
Yeah, and Monica, the Reagan Presidential Foundation also saying that they believe it was misrepresentative of the speech, right? What are we hearing from them?
Yeah, they are saying essentially, and that is why they're reviewing some legal options. They claim that this was not something that they felt was representative of that. Again, when you look at the actual speech, these are exact portions from the speech, but we'll see what they end up doing.
All right, let's turn now, Monica, to President Trump's crackdown on crime. He announced yesterday that he's actually calling off plans to send federal troops to San Francisco. And he says this is after he heard from some of his big friends in tech. Hours, though, after that announcement, there was a shootout outside the U.S. Coast Guard base in Alameda. That's near Oakland, near San Francisco. It was a CBS News photographer who was covering a protest that took place there earlier, reportedly saw officers open fire on a U-Haul driver who was backing up his vehicle toward them. So let's unpack all of this. What is keeping President Trump from sending the National Guard to San Francisco? Who did he hear from? What did he hear? And do you think that this particular incident could change anything?
Well, look, this is another example of the president saying in the last couple of weeks he was thinking about sending these federal law enforcement and National Guard troops to San Francisco. And then he says that he spoke with people like the head of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, Mark Benioff, who had been actually a figure in the last couple of weeks, who said maybe there should be National Guard troops sent to San Francisco. But the president said that he spoke to them, people who are close friends of his, close allies, and that they say they want to basically give it a shot. They want to see if they can maintain the situation in San Francisco at the current level that it is without having to surge federal resources. So the president said he spoke with the mayor of San Francisco in the last couple of days, and that the mayor also said, please don't send these additional resources. Let's see if we can get a handle on it for now and then make a decision. And the president said, stay tuned. That could change. But for now, he's not going to send them like he has to other cities, as we've seen in Chicago and Portland, D.C., elsewhere.
All right, Monica, also before we let you go, we got to talk more about the construction, the president's new ballroom at the White House. Lots of videos circulating, of course, of the East Wing being sort of destroyed as they prepare to build this there. It sounds like this project now shaping up to be a lot more complicated, more expensive than it was originally presented as. The president said this is being paid for by private funds. What's the latest here?
Yeah, $300 million price tag and potentially growing, Savannah. But those satellite images show just how large this has been of an undertaking and what was removed. We knew the East Wing, the offices of the First Lady, some staff and additional aides who used to work out of there, but also that entire East Colonnade and Terrace, which is where the movie theater was and where you had this really iconic sun-drenched hallway that a lot of visitors who came to the White House would see. But in addition to that, we've also learned that the Jacqueline Kennedy garden that was just outside of that terrace, as you're seeing there on your screen, was also torn up in the demolition. But I'm told by White House officials there was an effort to try to preserve some of the trees, plants, and shrubbery that was there, ideally to be able to relocate it and perhaps replant some of it when they do eventually rebuild that, though there's no timeline for completion of this really ambitious and giant project.
All right, Monica Alba, thanks very much for kicking us off. A lot to cover going on there today. Thank you so much. Well, it's day 24 of the government shutdown, and Democrats and Republicans are not any closer to a resolution. In fact, the Senate has gone home for the weekend, which means the shutdown will at least stretch into next week. It comes as many federal workers, though, are set to miss their first full paycheck today. And now there's growing concern for low-income Americans who depend on government-funded food assistance. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles breaks down what happened in the Senate's most recent failed vote.
On day 23 of the federal government shutdown, a new twist. Democrats blocking a GOP plan to start paying federal employees working without pay during the shutdown.
Democrats have rejected every opportunity they've been given to put the American people ahead of their far left base.
Democrats defending their vote, saying the GOP plan would have given President Trump too much power to decide who would get a paycheck.
Our belief is that no federal employee, no one should bear the burden or be punished for a shutdown they have nothing to do with.
Democrats want Republicans to agree to expand health care subsidies first before they'll vote to reopen the government. Democratic Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, who voted for the GOP plan, criticizing his own party, he says, is keeping the government closed.
Do you think your colleagues are making a mistake by not voting yes for this bill that would pay federal workers today?
I mean, I'm going to vote for anything that's credible and in a way to pay our workers. Why? Who wouldn't want to vote to want to pay all these people?
And now lines are building at food banks. Amber Hullett, a single mother from Texas, relies on federally funded food assistance that will lose funding in days.
It's hard. We're trying to dig ourselves out of a hole that now we feel like there's no hand up out of, you know.
Across the country, states are dealing with this lack of federal funding in different ways, some pulling from their rainy day funds. In Virginia, they've declared a state of emergency to support the SNAP program. And in California, they've mobilized the National Guard to help food banks across the state.
All right, Ryan Nobles, thank you very much. Well, lawyers for New York Attorney General Letitia James are challenging the appointment of prosecutor Lindsay Halligan ahead of her arraignment today on charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. Now, Halligan is the interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia and was tapped by President Trump for the position after her predecessor resigned. James' attorneys filed a motion citing what they characterize as Halligan's, quote, unlawful appointment in a bid to throw out James' case. We have NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach. He is in Norfolk. He joins us now. Gary, good morning. So let's unpack some of this. Some of that might have been a little wonky sounding, but just first, let's start with reminding us the charges that James faces, what they relate to, and what we expect to see and how she pleads today.
So, yeah, New York State Attorney General Letitia James has prosecuted hundreds of people across the course of her career. Today, she's the one facing charges. And today, the charges are bank fraud and false statements to a financial institution. That all stems from a home she purchased here in Norfolk in 2020. She purchased it. When she purchased the mortgage, she called it a second home. Prosecutors say it was used as a rental property. The problem is those two have two different mortgage rates. And so prosecutors say she saved thousands of dollars over the course of the 30-year loan. NBC News did do some math, though, and it equates to about $50 a month that she allegedly saved because of all this. She is expected to plead not guilty.
And Gary, as we mentioned, James' attorneys, they're expected to file this motion to get this indictment dismissed, but that is based specifically on this prosecutor, this unlawful appointment. They're saying, help us to understand what they're arguing here, how this process works in court. Do they have a real shot with this argument?
So the law states that you're only allowed to appoint an interim U.S. attorney for 120 days. And the previous U.S. attorney that resigned because of this case that Halligan got appointed because of was already there for much longer than 120 days. So James's team is saying the clock has run out. It doesn't start back up at zero. And Lindsay Halligan should be recused from being able to be part of this case, which means the charges should be dropped.
And Gary, James's defense team is also set to ask the judge to enforce rules prohibiting Trump officials and that prosecutor from talking publicly about her case. Why do they feel compelled to do that? What are the chances of that one?
So there's two reasons here. One, because of the comments that Donald Trump has made on his Truth Social platform over the past several months and years about the New York State Attorney General. Of course, they have quite a history. She brought charges against him. But the second is a conversation that the U.S. Attorney, Lindsay Halligan, that we were just talking about, had with a legal journalist over the messaging app Signal just a few weeks ago about the contents of this case. And that is very rare for that to happen. It really never happens across the country. You do not see prosecutors talking to journalists about the case. Usually what happens is their talking happens in the court filings and inside the courtroom.
All right.
Savannah.
Gary, sporting a new piece of hardware, by the way, a recently married man. Congratulations, Gary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, now let's get to the gambling scandals that are rocking the NBA this morning. They involve the current head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers and a player for the Miami Heat. Coach and NBA Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups and guard Terry Rozier were among more than 30 people arrested in two separate gambling investigations by the FBI. Federal officials say the allegations involved leaked information about NBA players and rigged poker games with ties to the mob. We got to talk a lot more about this one because it just is stranger than fiction. We've got our friend, NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas here. Danny, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we've got Operation Royal Flush. Let's start with that one. This is the one where I think people are like, what about these details? X-ray tables to read cards, the card shufflers, contact lenses. I mean, some of this stuff sounds made up, like something you'd see in a James Bond movie. Really happening here, though. Walk us through the details that we know and what specific accusations and charges would be.
Right. According to the allegations in the indictment, the high tech involved, as you just described, was really impressive. Everything from possibly X-ray tables, which I am really looking forward to the evidence on that. But also card shufflers, automatic card shufflers. You know, I do a fair amount of card magic myself, so I'm familiar with some of these gimmicks.
That's a real fact.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Does magic. We've all seen it at the Christmas party. It's lit. Continue.
So there are these automatic shufflers that can create hands that figure out how you deal them out, and you get an amazing hand, and I get a lousy hand. That's been around forever, and in fact, there are humans who can do that too. The problem is you can catch them with the naked eye if you know what you're looking for. You also hear about these marked cards. I own marked cards, but the kind they used, well, what they are is they show what the actual card is on both sides, but it's hidden. The problem with your ordinary marked cards is that in a poker game...
Say it again. They what?
It's sort of concealed. If you know what you're looking for, you can see it very easily, but nobody's thinking to look on the back design of a card for an embedded, 3 of hearts, which it'll be right there if you know where to look. The problem with poker, as opposed to magic, is that the people playing in a game of Hold'em, they hold the cards, so they can eventually look at them. What they allege instead is something called infrared marked cards, which I've heard of, never seen in action, but they use a principle that is something like when you go to a 3D movie and you have those glasses, or when you wear those glasses, you can see an image because of the filtering in the glasses, like a polarization, so to speak. So it filters the light and somehow allows in a glowing paint that you otherwise couldn't see. And the reason that helps is, number one, you can examine the card as a player and you don't see anything unless you have the glasses. And number two, you can make the number gigantic so you can see it at distance. Whereas with normal marked cards, I would have to get really close to see them. They're small so they can be concealed. But you can buy, I mean, you know, that iconic bicycle deck where everybody recognizes the back? They make a set of marked cards. I own them, and they're fantastic. But the problem is you got to get real close to see. At my age, I got to get real close to see it.
We have Angie Lassman waiting in the wings.
No, she's going to make so much fun of me. This is so embarrassing.
Well, Danny,
yes, Angie,
you have to admit,
I was not popular in high school. Do I have to say that out loud? There, I've said it.
Weren't you there when he was like dazzling us at the Christmas party? It's just so funny, Danny, because it makes so much sense. And you're like, you know, I've represented clients such as these, and I've argued this in a court. And now you're like, when I use my marked card.
Right, this is supposed to be a legal segment. I turned it into David Blaine.
No, but honestly, it's extremely helpful. Like, you just made a lot of stuff that I've been reading a ton about make a lot more sense than I could understand. Okay, let's talk about Operation Nothing. This is where it's like, you know, I'm going to be out earlier than normal because I'm going to fake an injury or whatever, that type of stuff. Walk us through this one.
Yeah, because, and your example you gave would be a perfect way in a prop bet. Now, the advent of the prop bet, it's come around since about the 80s. It's really evolved. In the old days, you would bet on, hey, the Packers to win or the Packers to cover the spread. The advent of the prop bet means you bet on virtually everything you can imagine, including the performance of an individual player. And when that happens, there is a tremendous potential for corruption. You can go to that player and say, hey, the over-under on you scoring tonight is 10 points. So if you just get hurt in the first quarter with 5 points, we make a ton of money. Here's why this doesn't work in the modern era as compared to the old era. Two major reasons. Number one, a lot of this is online. There's tons of data. So you can see when there's a spike, hey, everyone's betting the under on so-and-so playing in a game. That's very suspicious. And then, of course, the second part of that is the prop bet itself, the fact that that is like the new thing that people bet on. And so I think probably we're going to find in the evidence is they saw a data spike in somebody betting on an under for a particular player. That's a dead giveaway. Kind of thing with the data that we collect now that makes a crime like this easier to investigate than it would have been 30 years ago when you're putting your bet with a bookie.
Danny, quickly, how also, I think this is sort of what you're touching on, but just the fact that there is so much legal sports betting, which is kind of a murky area, even as you cross state lines, laws are different. But how does that impact what we're seeing in things like this, that people are legally sports betting all the time and doing most of it online?
Right. I mean, it's a really interesting question because presumably in games like poker, these are games that people could have played at the casino and not had to worry about X-ray glasses and X-ray tables and things like that. So it's a big question of why do people choose to go to play in these potentially corrupted poker games. But of course, on the sports betting side, people have said for decades now that legalized gambling is a major threat to professional sports because professional sports depends on confidence in the idea of pure competition. So it's a tremendous threat, especially the prop bet, the bet where you can bet on one person's performance in a game. This is something that the NBA and all pro sports need to be very concerned about.
Danny's going to stick with us. Our next block will be card tricks.
That's absolutely. I will pull things out of hats.
You have like a
whatever
quarter
you like.
behind your ear from me?
Yeah, I can see Angie snickering already. It's going to be brutal.
Angie, you have any questions? Okay, let's go see Angie now. It's time for a check. Danny, thank you so much. On your morning news now weather, Tropical Storm Melissa is slowly moving into the central Caribbean region today. It may strengthen quickly, though, into a major hurricane this weekend. As you're well aware, Angie Lastman is in studio with us with the latest forecast. Hi, Angie.
Hi, guys. How am I supposed to follow up Danny with his card tricks and magic knowledge? We do still have Tropical Storm Melissa, of course, churning in parts of the Caribbean, and this is essentially stationary right now. How often do you see movement from the National Hurricane Center that just says stationary? That's what we're dealing with today, and we've got those winds up to 45 miles per hour right now. Notice it's about 160 plus miles from Kingston right now. It's kind of just going to stay in that general vicinity for the long term, so no surprise that we have folks across the Caribbean that are gearing up for these hurricane impacts. So the hurricane watches are in effect for Jamaica, and they're in effect for Haiti right now. And we will still see some of these locations across this region picking up some really ample amounts of rain because of how slow this system is going to move. Notice it does become a hurricane by the time we get into the weekend, and then rapidly intensifies into a category for a major hurricane by the time we roll into early next week. So notice that we're not covering a lot of ground with this system here from now through the next couple of days. We're going to continue to see this system kind of churning in this region, and then eventually picking up some really ample amounts of rain for folks across this region. So 15 inches of rain in some spots is possible. We'll see this down the line potentially work into parts of the Atlantic. No threat to the United States as of right now, guys.
We have a present for you.
Oh, gosh. What?
Watch the ring. Watch the ring. Can we see the ring? Right. We got it right here in this camera. Here we go. Right there. And poof. It's gone. Yeah. Well, obviously, the kids figured that one out very quickly. Yeah, I know. Well, that's just for the kids.
Can you do it one more time? Yeah,
one more time. You got to pay a lot of attention, folks. Camera move high def very fast. There it goes. Right there. And it's gone.
The thing that you don't see behind the scenes while we're waiting to come on the show is Danny with his cards, March cards, allegedly, now I know, doing magic tricks for the whole crew.
How do you do your tricks on us?
I exude coolness, don't I? Right. Not exactly.
Honestly, now magic is cool, and you know that.
Yeah.
Yes, but for most of my life, it was not. Yeah, tell it to the kids when they put me in the lockers. That was very rough. Very difficult.
You need a hug, I think.
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you,
Danny.
Angie.
Thank you. And honestly,
and I love
that
you
was
guys
an
too.
extremely helpful segment about the story everybody's talking about.
And now I'm going to disappear. I'll see you.
Love you both. We have much more to come on Morning News Now this morning. A lot to get to for y'all. Later this hour, off target, the retail giant cutting a record 1,800 corporate jobs. What's behind the most layoffs for the company in a decade? But first, though, after the break, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza growing more dire by the day as the fragile ceasefire there holds. The urgent warning from the World Health Organization. Stay with us. We are back now with developing news out of Gaza, where the World Health Organization's warning about a worsening humanitarian crisis despite the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. NBC News International correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome with our world news in 60 seconds. Claudio, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Well, that's right. On Thursday, the World Health Organization said that while the delivery of humanitarian aid has increased in Gaza since that ceasefire was implemented, it's still a fraction of what is needed in the enclave. Now, the WHO director, Tedros Ghebreyesus, said 600,000 people in Gaza still face catastrophic levels of food insecurity and urged the reopening of the Rafah border crossing, where a significant amount of aid is still waiting for permission to enter Gaza. He also said that rebuilding Gaza's medical infrastructure will cost at least $7 billion. Let's go to North Korea now, where state media reported that the construction of a memorial for its soldiers killed fighting in Russia's war in Ukraine has begun. The ceremony was attended by Russia's ambassador to North Korea and Kim Jong-un, who hailed the monument as a historic peak in ties with Moscow. In the meantime, the White House said President Trump will meet China's President Xi Jinping in South Korea next week as part of his trip to Asia. And let's end this tour of the world on Christmas Island in the Indian Ocean, where millions of crabs have begun their annual migration. This spectacular event happens every summer when around 50 million crabs move to the beaches to lay their eggs. Local authorities even built special bridges to help them cross the road safely. And I'm a bit jealous, I must say, Savannah, because it looks like it's safer for crabs on Christmas Island to cross the roads on there than us here in Rome. It's very dangerous. Back to you.
Italy is wild for that. That was so amazing to see. Kind of creepy. My gosh, so many. All right, Claudio, thank you so much. Well, coming up, a fight to survive, now a battle for healthcare coverage.
Nobody deserves to not get the treatment they need.
When we come back, why one man says he's being denied potentially life-saving care. You're watching Morning News Now. We are back with the story of a month-by-month fight for survival for one father and husband in North Carolina. His doctor says he needs a potentially life-saving drug to treat his cancer long enough to receive a transplant, but his insurance company has denied coverage multiple times. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin spoke to the man and his wife, who say they fear he is running out of time.
Love you. Love you, honey.
Just outside Asheville, North Carolina, John Middleton wants to live.
Even though I was dealt with bad cards, there's something out there that's FDA approved that said, hey, we can give you a real chance, and that's all I want.
John has bile duct cancer inside his liver. There is a drug his doctor wants him on, but insurance denied coverage, leaving him and his wife, Caitlin, desperate.
Nobody deserves to not get the treatment they need.
How are you feeling?
Pretty terrible, but I just want to help him. We're right out of options, you know, in time.
John's oncologist, Dr. Martin Palmieri, says genetic tests show the drug Ziihera is the best option to get John cancer-free for as long as possible. Long enough for the 43-year-old father and engineer to get a liver transplant.
What's his prognosis if he does not get access to this drug?
I think it's more of a question of getting him to transplant. So if I don't get him to transplant, I would say he has 18 months to live. The insurance company said that I could give him an almost as good drug to help him get there, but not the drug that me, 2 other medical oncologists, and a team of doctors here in Asheville felt was the best drug for John.
John has Cigna health insurance through Caitlin's employer. Cigna has denied the FDA-approved medication 3 times. Instead, Palmieri says Cigna first recommended a treatment that he believes was grossly inferior.
The problem with that is that if he failed and the cancer came outside of the liver to another body part, then his chance for cure would be off the table.
In a statement to NBC News, Cigna says 2 specialists independent from the company reviewed the request for Ziihera, adding there are multiple medications covered by Mr. Middleton's plan that are similar to Ziihera and recommended for his current condition. And we quickly approved his physician's request for a covered medication as soon as it was submitted. But Dr. Palmieri is concerned the approved drug isn't good enough for what John needs.
That's playing cancer chicken in my mind. I mean, that's just not morally right on so many different levels.
John's identical twin brother James has been watching the struggle for 7 agonizing months.
I don't know what I'd do without him.
Ready to step in if John becomes eligible for a transplant. You might give him your liver?
Yes. I mean, I'll do whatever I have to do to keep my brother around.
John hopes to get to that point, but is worried too much time has already been lost to denial.
Are you worried that it's going to cost you your life?
Yeah, I am. I accept it, but I just have to keep fighting because I have to hold on to hope, you know? Without, there's nothing.
Our thanks to Aaron McLaughlin for that very powerful report. Well, according to Dr. Palmieri, John is expected to start receiving treatment today with that drug that Cigna did approve. However, Dr. Palmieri says he doesn't know if it will be enough to get John the liver transplant that he desperately needs. Love this series that we're doing. It's making a real difference. Well, in other medical news, as we head into the colder months, doctors are urging everyone to get vaccinated against those 3 viruses that typically surge this time of year. You probably know what they are: flu, COVID, and RSV. They can all cause serious illness if people are unprotected, especially in more vulnerable groups. We have NBC News medical reporter Dr. Akshay Syal here with us on set for more. Dr. Syal, good morning. Always great to see you. Let's start by defining these 3 things: flu, COVID, RSV, I think, is that what we were calling the triple-demic before? And sort of like the differences, what it means if you get multiple, like how do you know what's what?
Right, so you can see on your screen there, you know, Savannah, off the top, the only way you can really tell is a test, right? That's the best way to sort of tell the difference. But
and there's a test for each one of these.
There's a rapid test at home for flu and COVID, not so much for RSV. That is something you'll have to see me for. But to tell the difference between flu and COVID and RSV, you know, think of flu like you get hit by a freight train, right? So like think 1 minute.
Oh yeah, we all know that feeling.
1 minute you're totally fine. The next one, you know, you're on the couch 3 seasons deep in Love Island. That's a sort of classic flu story, right? The next one is COVID, which can be sort of a variable onset. It can be slow, it can be fast. We tend to see a more of a dry hacking cough, and you can get stomach upset with that. And then finally, RSV, or respiratory syncytial virus. It is something that can cause wheezing that can be really, really dangerous to people over 65 and people under the age of 2. It can cause really big problems with breathing and wheezing and sort of like a mucousy cough. So that's one to be aware of too.
So who should be getting vaccinated?
So it's changed, right? You know, for the flu, it's really everyone over 6 months of age. For COVID, it's different. You know, we've tended to now adopted a sort of policy more in line with the UK, which is really people who are 65 and older, people who are high risk, pregnant women, people with chronic disease, asthma, heart disease, those sorts of things. But it's not like before, where you know everyone goes for a flu shot, they go for a COVID shot. We are doing things a little bit differently, a little bit more nuanced this year. So you do have to talk to your doctor if you're looking to get a COVID shot.
Also, if you are looking to get any of these, when would be the best time to do that? When is it like too late, too early?
Right now.
Okay.
Right now, flu before boo. Have you heard that phrase before?
Yes, I have. Like meaning before Halloween. That's cute. That's
yeah.
good.
So I say, if you're going to buy your Halloween costume, go ahead and get your flu shot. Really now is. Flu Mist is something that you can actually order to your door now. It's an at-home, it's an at-home nasal vaccine for people 2 to 49 years old. You can get them at the same time, and RSV is something we recommend for people 75 and older, and also for people, pregnant women as well.
I think, Doctor, and even when we just had that graphic up on the screen about like vulnerable groups, I think people are a little confused because there's certain guidance says if you're pregnant or if your child, we wouldn't recommend it. A lot of doctors are saying that guidance from the CDC is not what they recommend. But I think the reality is a lot of people are not getting the COVID shot anymore. It's sort of like something that we did and people aren't doing it anymore. Do you think it's okay case by case as an individual to just talk to your doctor and decide what's best for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the vaccine is you know, but what we've seen over the years seems to be safe. For pregnant women, the major societies for GYN have also said the same thing. But for everyone else who's young and healthy and really wondering, you know, I think this is a better approach. I think this is more in line with other countries. And I think the annual flu and COVID kind of got a little bit ahead of ourselves. And this is a little bit more nuanced and something I do agree with.
Very quickly, when should you go to the doctor if you have any symptoms?
Trouble breathing, chest pain, any dizziness or lightheadedness.
All right. Dr. Sayal, always great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Well, coming up, vertical viewing. More people turn into their phones for entertainment without actually physically turning their phone. So look at how so-called micro dramas are changing the industry. And the World Series showdown getting underway tonight with the defending champs, the LA Dodgers, chasing history against the Toronto Blue Jays. More on the excitement next on Morning News Now. Welcome back. Well, in a time where we can stream just about anything anywhere on a multitude of platforms, right? A new form of storytelling is catching on fast. These are called micro dramas or vertical soap operas. So they're short, bingeable episodes built for the scrolling generation because you literally watch them vertically. You don't turn your phone. NBC News correspondent Marquise Francis shows us how these miniseries are reshaping entertainment.
But who I truly am is the long-lost king of cooking, Leon Kennedy.
As budgets and interest for more traditional U.S. TV programming continue to shrink, the consumption of these episodic vertical videos is exploding.
You hear nothing but contraction and decline, but in this vertical space, it's like they're everywhere.
Hey, have you seen April?
Oh, she's probably just cooling down after last night. Check.
Known as microdramas or vertical dramas, 90-minute soap operas broken down into 1 to 2 minute clips with intense cliffhangers, all accessed on your smartphone, are breathing new life into the content world.
On any given day when I go on like Actors Access, it's like 60 to 80% of the things that are on there are these verticals, which is crazy.
capturing viewers who are often on the go and cannot commit to a 30-minute episode, but desire something more substantial than doom scrolling on social media, these microdramas have found a sweet spot for a growing audience.
There are a lot of trends that are interconnecting here, whether it's AI, whether it's the prevalence of short-form video platforms like TikTok or Reels, and then just, our changing attention economy.
Originating in China in the 2010s, just last year, the Chinese microdrama industry made $6.9 billion in revenue, surpassing the country's entire box office sales in 2024. And in the US, vertical streaming apps like Real Short, DramaBox, and others are beating out major streaming giants like Netflix, Hulu, and Paramount Plus in user growth, with analysts predicting the US industry will surpass $4 billion in revenue in 2025.
I don't even think we've seen 10% of the potential that it has, specifically in the United States.
My queen, now!
Millones de corazones.
That's why brands like Telemundo, the Spanish-language TV station, which is owned by our parent company NBC Universal, is also jumping into the space.
We, as Telemundo, we need to be where the audience is. We cannot force them to be in one window or the other. We need to be ready to capture the attention of this audience wherever they are.
Lily Pearson. It's been a while.
Do you feel like some of these streaming platforms, like a Netflix, like a Hulu, should be concerned about these vertical dramas?
No, they should jump on board. You could be concerned if you want, but then you're going to be Blockbuster.
Financially, vertical dramas for creators just make sense. They cost a fraction of what feature-length films and TV shows require to produce and are shot in a matter of days instead of months.
So if you're a young person and you want to tell a movie or tell a story, you can do it in a very cost-effective way.
Frowned upon by some film and acting purists, vertical dramas, for those willing to embrace the space, can also be lucrative.
Yeah, you can make $40,000 a month.
You want a spot at Harvard? Well, then you better get on your knees and beg for it.
How big do you really see this going?
It won't replace movies or TV, but it's just going to become an option that you just can't ignore.
Marquise Francis, NBC News.
I don't know. I want to be myself horizontal while watching something horizontal, right? All right, now it's time for our Money Minute. Target is making historic cuts to its corporate workforce. NBC's Emily Lorsch joins us live with that and our other money headlines. Hi, and good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Target is slashing about 1,800 jobs, its first major round of layoffs in a decade. That's about 8% of the retail giant's workforce. The move comes as the company tries to reignite growth after years of weak sales and braces for a new CEO to take charge next year. Those affected will be notified on Tuesday, and according to a spokesperson, no roles in stores or its supply chain will be impacted. And Google Earth is expanding with new AI features to better map disasters and track which areas are going to be affected. Users can now ask the AI model questions, and it uses weather forecasts, satellite imagery, and population maps to provide answers. The new capabilities will only be available for professional subscribers, though, and that plan starts at $75 a month. Finally, fans of Stranger Things will soon be able to experience the show's grand finale on the big screen. Netflix is bringing the final episode to more than 350 theaters across the U.S. and China, starting on December 31st. It marks the first time a TV episode will premiere in both theaters and on streaming at the same time. The final season kicks off November 26th and will be released on Netflix in 3 batches. And Savannah, these fans, they really get into it, so I wouldn't be surprised if in theaters they're all dressed up and
cute.
They're really getting involved.
I used to be super into that show, and I should get back into it. I don't know.
Definitely. You got to go to the theater now.
Yeah. All right, Emily, thank you so much. Well, we've been talking a lot about basketball here this week because the NBA is back on NBC. But this morning, we are looking ahead to this year's MLB World Series. It gets underway tonight. The Los Angeles Dodgers find themselves back in the Fall Classic after flying through the earlier rounds, thanks to some jaw-dropping performances. But if they want to repeat as champions, they'll have to get through the Toronto Blue Jays, who are riding the wave of an incredible comeback to make their first World Series appearance in more than 30 years. With a preview of this year's World Series, I'm joined by MLB Network insider John Morosi. John, good morning. Great to have you with us. So the first pitch, it's at 8 p.m. Eastern in Toronto tonight. Just set the stage for us. What are the biggest headlines coming into this year's series?
Savannah, good morning. As you mentioned, the first World Series games in Canada in more than 30 years, and eventually the first World Series games in Los Angeles since last year. The Dodgers, of course, the defending World Series champions. We begin with the superstars, Shohei Ohtani, an iconic Game 4 performance in the National League Championship Series, perhaps the greatest single postseason performance ever. 3 home runs. As a hitter on the mound, he was magnificent as well. Of course, the Blue Jays had courted him in free agency years ago. He chose the Dodgers. He's already won a World Series there. Now on the Toronto side of the equation, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., son of the Hall of Famer. He was actually born in Montreal when his father was playing for the Expos. Vladdy is now the American League Championship Series most valuable player. Several iconic moments for him. So you have a great Canadian and Dominican star in Vladdy, a great Japanese star in Ohtani, along with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. It is one of the great global World Series that we have ever seen.
I want to ask you a few more about each team specifically. The Blue Jays, let's talk about this comeback. They're winning back-to-back elimination games to advance to their World Series again since they won it all. That was back in 1993. Do you think that momentum, also home field advantage, could be enough to help them win another championship?
I do, Savannah. The Blue Jays, to me, have a much better chance to win this World Series than many people think. Their team batting average, Savannah, is close to 300, which is the highest of any team that has been in these playoffs at any point. They have a very young starting pitcher tonight, Trey Savage. He is the youngest Game 1 starter in the World Series since 1947, according to some great research by Sarah Langs of MLB.com. So there's a nice youth and experience combination. George Springer had a great Game 7 for the Blue Jays. He's a former World Series MVP back from 2007. There you see George amid the celebration. Some experience there, too, on the Blue Jays side of things. Max Scherzer is now in his early 40s. He had a great performance for them in the American League Championship Series. He is a previous World Series champion with the Washington Nationals. So while there does seem to be a bit of a difference in experience between the Dodgers, many of whom, of course, a lot of those players were on the World Series winning team just 1 year ago, the Blue Jays individually, Savannah, have some very important experience as well and can mount, I believe, a strong challenge.
All right, John Morosi, thank you so much for joining us. Happy watching.
Thanks, Savannah. Happy World Series. Enjoy.
All right, y'all want to hear something spooky? Halloween is only 1 week away, but if you're feeling tricked, searching for the perfect costume, don't worry, you're in for a treat. We're going to get the top trends on Google up next. Don't be scared. You're watching Morning News Now. 1 week away from Halloween, when all of the trick-or-treaters will come looking for candy. But this year, there's some interesting costumes. Might not just be usual goblins and ghouls. They may look like a demon hunter or a 6'7". For more on what all of that means, including what a 6'7" looks like. By the way, you have to do that. As well as the other top trending topics this Halloween. Let's bring in Google Trends expert Sarah Armstrong. Sarah, good morning. Great to have you with us. A huge chunk of this list is from K-pop Demon Hunters. Tell us about this.
You're right. So 6 out of the top 10 and the entire top 5 K-pop Demon Hunters. I did watch the movie. It's very fun. We're kind of getting into Gen
I feel like
Alpha
I need
territory.
to. I haven't yet, but I feel like I need to see it.
It's really a delight. It's basically K-pop stars who are also hunting demons with the power of their voice. It's a pretty funny and fun movie, and so I see why it's taking over the
And also, these are cute costumes.
They're super cute. So we're seeing like pink wigs trending, white boots. I think we'll see lots of trios this year.
Lots of trios. There you go. Really cute. Okay, in the rest of the top 10, what are some of the other ones that are making the crack in the top list that aren't from Demon Hunters?
Okay, Labubu might not surprise you. That's also the top baby costume and the top dog costume.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
Are people like ordering like a Labubu costume, or are they make how? Because
Yeah,
how would you do
I mean,
that?
I guess it depends if you're an adult or a baby or a dog.
Right.
It would really change. I've seen some people try to sew their own kind of Labubu.
Wow, very creative.
We're seeing the Lorax trending, so
cute.
orange bodysuit.
Yeah.
And then Alphaba, a lot of green.
Ooh, oh my gosh. One time I was the Grinch. I will warn you, painting your entire face green makes for an interesting night. Okay, let's talk about the social media one. So 6-7, if you've been watching the show, we did a whole explainer on this last week. It doesn't really mean anything, which is kind of infuriating to a lot of people, but I assume you dress up somebody's a 6, somebody's a 7?
Exactly. It's a good duo costume. I've seen like a jersey that's a number 6 and a jersey that's number 7, maybe kind of thing 1 and thing 2, but it's 6 and 7, so people are getting creative.
Okay, also a Jet 2 costume, if you know the nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday. What's the costume?
I know, I might steal this one. So it's a lot of flight attendant costumes or kind of people on vacation, but the way this trend has gone is it's vacations that have gone awry.
Right.
So maybe you can be kind of disheveled and on vacation for your Jet 2 holiday.
The videos are very funny if you haven't seen them. It's this audio that says nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday, but then somebody shows like a train wreck of a vacation. Really quickly, finally, as far as candy and entertaining, what are the trends?
Yeah, okay, so we're seeing Swedish candy that's very popular. What caught my attention, though, is pickled flavored candy corn, dill pickle candy corn.
Stop. Ew.
That pickle flavor, it's still really taking off. And then for entertaining, we're seeing more like floating candles, not so much spooky, more like mystical, magical.
Oh, okay. I kind of like a mix.
Yeah, I think so too. I get a little scared with the haunted house and all of that.
I love being scared. When I take my dog on a walk in the afternoon, I've been walking through certain neighborhoods in New York where people like do it up on their houses, and it's just so cute. I love it so much. Sarah Armstrong, thank you very much. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.
Just a week out now. Fun stuff. All right, that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Thanks for being with us. Don't go anywhere. The news continues right now. Good morning and good news. It's Friday. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe's on assignment today. Right now on Morning News Now, out of office, top lawmakers on Capitol Hill once again leaving Washington as that government shutdown enters day 24 with no end in sight. A vital bill to provide pay for critical federal workers, think air traffic controllers, TSA staffers, failing to pass in the Senate. And now several states are scrambling to pick up the slack before social benefits for millions run out at the end of the month. We are covering it all. Also this morning, Tropical Storm Melissa churning in the Caribbean, expected to strengthen to a major hurricane this weekend, potentially impacting millions. We are tracking the latest conditions and where this massive system could end up. Gaming the system, a shocking alleged gambling scandal rocking the NBA right as a new season tips off. The 30-plus people, including current and former players, named in a pair of sweeping investigations into a complex sports betting scheme, money laundering, and we'll tell you how the mob plays into it all. And later in the hour, check yourself why a handful of states are now looking to give those frustrating self-checkout counters the slip in favor of something a little more personal. Every single time I try to do that, it doesn't go well. All right, we begin, though, with day 24 of the government shutdown. Democrats and Republicans have yet to agree on a resolution. Meanwhile, yesterday, the Senate went home for the weekend, which means the shutdown will stretch into next week at least. Now, states across the U.S. are bracing for the massive impact we're going to feel. A long list of federal benefits are set to run out at the end of the month. That includes the SNAP program. It comes as both sides continue to blame each other for the lack of a breakthrough. NBC News chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles is live in Washington with the latest. Ryan, I think a lot of this has been kind of this talk in Washington. Now people at home are really starting to feel it. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. And you do wonder how much the average American is paying attention to this shutdown, which is now extending into its 24th day. But now facing this critical deadline where these social safety net programs like WIC and SNAP are set to run out. How are Americans going to react? Some states are going to try and fill those gaps, but they admit that many people are going to fall through the cracks. This morning, thousands of federal workers missing their first full paycheck. The real-world impacts of the shutdown continuing to ripple across the country as Congress leaves town on day 24 of the shutdown. The Senate unable to pass a bill that would provide pay for federal employees like air traffic controllers, TSA officers, and law enforcement who are working without pay. Democrats objecting, saying the bill gives the president too much power to decide who gets paid.
I think if we want to pay federal employees and service members, which I do, then we should just have a bill that just does that.
the lack of progress multiplying the problems across the country. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warning of more air travel issues.
And because of the shutdown, it's causing an impact, a true impact on the pipeline of new controllers that come in and fix the airspace.
And with so many workers not getting paid, states aiming to pick up the slack. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom is mobilizing the National Guard to help support food banks who have lines out the door. In Virginia, the state declared a state of emergency to deal with funding for social safety net programs running out of funding. Wisconsin has yet to come up with a plan to support their programs. A scary situation for Destiny Doonan, who's unable to work because she has to care for her 3-year-old son suffering from cancer.
We'll have to make some sacrifices. I don't like having to ask for help. I don't have like a village, so it's hard.
In Pennsylvania, Democratic Senator John Fetterman said as many as 2 million of his constituents could be in danger of going hungry.
Do you think Americans are just sick of the blame game at this point?
I mean, I sure am tired of the blame game. I just want to open up this thing.
So keep this in mind. Next week, we are going to extend into the 5th week of this government shutdown. This original short-term spending plan, which the House passed and the Senate has yet to pass, was only going to fund government through November 21st. So we are dealing with a real crisis here. And Savannah, at this point, there is not too many options as to how we're going to get out of it.
Oh, that is so true. And for everybody going through an airport, thank your TSA workers. Ryan, thank you very much. All right, well, down the street from Capitol Hill at the White House, the president's major construction project is moving full steam ahead. New satellite images show the demolition of the executive mansion's historic East Wing, where a brand new ballroom will eventually take its place. It comes as President Trump is abruptly calling off trade negotiations with Canada after seeing a political ad that appeared to criticize his tariffs. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Hake has more on all of this.
Viewers may have seen this ad running during the Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners playoff series earlier this week. It features excerpts from a 1987 speech by President Reagan opposing the use of high tariffs, which the president and the Reagan Foundation says the ad cuts misleadingly. Now, President Trump says he's cutting off trade talks with one of our biggest partners and closest allies.
Overnight, President Trump abruptly ending talks with one of America's closest allies and trading partners. Writing on social media, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. The president apparently making the unexpected change because of his objections to a Canadian-made ad criticizing tariffs, featuring a speech by former President Ronald Reagan.
America's jobs and growth are at stake.
The Ronald Reagan Foundation saying the ad, quote, misrepresents the speech. Tensions have been rising after Trump imposed tariffs on imports from Canada earlier this year, the country accounting for more than $400 billion in goods coming into the U.S. Earlier yesterday, the president touting his trade war.
Thank God for tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, we'd be a third world nation.
At the same event, fielding questions about a very different signature project, his new ballroom, taking the place of the now demolished East Wing of the White House. The view from space offering a dramatic before and after of the site. Crews removing debris from the historic complex, all to clear the way for President Trump's plan to 90,000 square foot ballroom, nearly double the size of the current executive mansion.
It'll be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world.
The renovation during a lengthy government shutdown facing pushback, including from some Republicans.
People are saying, the government's being destroyed. Well, now it looks like the White House is physically being destroyed.
The White House arguing the president has the authority to make the changes and saying private donations and the president himself will cover the costs.
The president, yes, has committed his own resources.
We'll see a dollar figure from the president?
Yes, he will.
The president later pressed about his own contributions.
How much am I donating? I won't be able to tell you until I finish, but I'll donate whatever's needed.
The president has also been showing off designs for another project he wants to build, a triumphal arch like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris that you would see as you come across the bridge from Virginia into Washington. The president says he'd like to get this done to highlight the U.S.'s 250th birthday celebration, but it's not at all clear that he'd have the legal authority, access to property, or the funding necessary to take on such a project, let alone on that timeline. That said, it's clear the president is not interested in stopping with just this ballroom when it comes to ways to make a permanent Trump mark on the city of Washington.
All right, Garrett, thank you very much. Well, let's get to the latest update on Tropical Storm Melissa that's threatening several island nations as it continues to strengthen this morning. The storm is slowly making its way through the Caribbean and could intensify into a major hurricane throughout the weekend. Forecasters now warn that it could unleash potentially catastrophic flash flooding and landslides in southern Haiti as it barrels toward the U.S. coastline. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent George Solis. He is live in Jamaica for us this morning. George, good morning. Forecasts say that Melissa could end up brushing past Jamaica as this powerful hurricane quite soon. Why might heavy rains bring such devastating impacts, and what is the area you're in anticipating?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. We're in Kingston right now, where officials here are bracing for a marathon, not a sprint. They know this is going to be a slow-moving event. The National Hurricane Center at one point saying this storm was stationary. It is beginning to move once again, but that unpredictability is what makes it so hard to figure out what this storm is going to do. But one thing, as you highlighted, they are expecting life-threatening rain and catastrophic flooding here in the Kingston area. Officials said to brief a little bit earlier this morning about some of the storm preps, everything already sort of in preparation for this storm. They're advising people, especially in areas where people are resistant to leave, to start making and thinking about those plans for evacuations. Now, keep in mind, right now we're under a tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch. So a lot of this is still precautionary. But again, officials not taking any risk. The other thing of note here, Jamaica has been hit with days of rain. So the ground here is very saturated. So more rain on top of that obviously increases the risk for those landslides. But the bottom line here is, with really just no sense of what the storm might do, officials urging everyone to stay on alert.
George, one official from the U.S. National Hurricane Center in Miami raised concerns about the risks of rainfall, in particular for the Caribbean islands. How are people in its path preparing this morning?
Yeah, we've been talking to locals here. A lot of them are going to the stores, getting all of their essentials. Keep in mind, Melissa is already wreaking havoc in the DR and Haiti, where officials there saying at least 3 deaths have occurred. In the DR, you're seeing some flooding and some infrastructure issues here. Officials here warning that power here will likely go out once this event starts to kick off, especially into the weekend. But again, officials here urging everyone to take this very seriously. And again, a lot of folks already making those necessary preparations should they need to evacuate, should they need to hunker down for whatever Melissa brings.
All right,
Savannah?
George Solis, thank you very much and stay safe. Well, that threat of flooding continues for southern Haiti, Dominican Republic, and parts of eastern Jamaica. This tropical storm Melissa is moving into the central Caribbean today, as we're discussing. Let's get a check on your morning news now. Weather, Angie Lastman is in studio tracking that for us. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Savannah. Good morning to you. I liked what George said, where he said this is a marathon, not a sprint. We do see a kind of long-term impacts across the same region from tropical storm Melissa. But here's that latest update that we got from the National Hurricane Center at the top of the hour. 45-mile-per-hour winds, so not much change there. We're still looking at 185 miles to the southeast of Kingston, Jamaica for the center of that storm, and now moving at just 1 mile per hour. And that's going to be kind of the general vibe that we see through the next days. Little movement, still being impacted across this region with some strong winds as well as the heavy rain. Places like Haiti, Jamaica are under those hurricane watches, so that means they're going to feel those hurricane force winds here as we get through the next couple of days, and the potential for, as I mentioned, a whole lot of rain with this system kind of just hanging around. Now, one thing to note, we're likely going to see it become a hurricane as we get into the weekend, so probably tomorrow at some point, and then rapid intensification with this system is expected. So we're talking more than 35-mile-per-hour gain in a 24-hour period, likely becoming a major hurricane and a Cat 4 at that. National Hurricane Center that could likely happen by early next week. And notice we didn't cover a lot of ground between now and then, so we're still going to be looking at those prolonged impacts across this region. Hence the reason that we are so concerned for that devastating flooding. Now, as we get into Wednesday, maintaining Category 4 strength and taking aim at Cuba, we'll be keeping a close eye on it there, of course, for more of those impacts. And then down the line, as far as where this system goes long term, talking about middle of next week and beyond, that'll take a turn into parts of the Atlantic. Still a lot of uncertainty with this, but we're going to, of course, be watching this for the extended period. Meanwhile, elsewhere across the middle of the country, we've got some showers, some thunderstorms. They're scattered, but already ramping up this morning. So heads up for folks. If you live in Oklahoma City, stretching down to Waco, we've got flood watches in effect for that region. We've had a good amount of rain so far this morning and more on the way. So we'll be watching for the potential for some flooding as we see this system kind of work across the parts of the Central Plains. If you live in West Texas, you'll see that severe risk through the afternoon hours today, so heads up for any outdoor plans there. And we'll see that enhanced flood risk. And then as we go into tomorrow, that kind of shifts across parts of New Orleans, a sliver of Mississippi, as well as Texas, Houston specifically. You're right in the middle of that. So your Saturday plans across this region, it's going to be unsettled. You want to make sure that you're aware of that. If you live across parts of the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic and even a couple spots in the Northeast, we are chilly. We've got 52 million people under these frost and freeze alerts. It includes Madison, Indianapolis, Charlottesville, Philadelphia, Raleigh, and temperatures this morning checking in into the 30s in some spots, low 40s closer to the coast. We've got 41 degrees in Kalamazoo, just 27 in Madison, Savannah, and we keep that autumn chill in the picture for folks there. If you're looking for the warmth, it's across the Gulf, but that's also where the rain is, so choose your own adventure.
You know what? It's fall. We expect
yes,
something along these lines. I'm liking it, by the way.
Me too.
Thank you very much, Angie.
Of course.
Well, this morning we are learning more details about those two gambling scandals allegedly involving NBA figures. More than 30 people have been charged in connection with illegal sports betting and poker investigations. They include current and former players, as well as the current head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups. For more on this, because we want to keep talking about it, let's bring in Maria Konnikova. She's a professional poker player and the author of The Biggest Bluff, How I Learned to Pay Attention, Master Myself, and Win. Maria, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We just can't get enough of this story, and you seem like the coolest person ever, so I'm very excited to have you on the show and chat with you today. So you're actually currently working on another book. This one is about cheating in games, including poker. So I guess let's just start by, were you surprised by any of these allegations that we heard yesterday from the FBI, or is stuff like this going on almost like an open secret?
Yeah, I was not surprised at all, especially by the poker stuff, because there have been rumors in the poker community about cheating in these high stakes games for years, literally years. And I get tips all the time because of what I'm working on. And I have heard so many allegations of people, hacking into machines. The technology that exists now is it's truly mind-boggling, and it's incredibly frightening. I personally do not play in any high-stakes private games, and I urge other people to follow suit because open secret, I think, is the right word. We've even had poker players actually say it out loud, including some of the people, Chauncey Billups, who was in these indictments. His name has actually been mentioned by fellow poker player Matt Berkey multiple years ago on his podcast as being part of a game that was rigged in LA and in Vegas.
Wow. You actually recently said on a podcast, and I love this because this is some of these details that I think are mind-blowing to us who are not insiders in this. You said, the stories I've heard over the past year are just insane. I've talked to people who create equipment for magicians, which can then be misused. They'll make you paranoid. You also talked about technology in sunglasses that you'd never be able to tell. And this sounds like some of the technology involved in the cheating here. Walk us through what you've learned, how this stuff works. X-ray tables, the card counting machines, the glasses, the contact lenses.
Yeah, so there are so many different ways of doing this. So the card counting machines, there's actually a team that hacked it on purpose just to show how it can be done. And basically, if you can access these machines, they have the capability of ordering cards in any order whatsoever. But they also have a camera in there, and the camera tells you, okay, if I want to sort the deck, say, so, that's completely in order, the game's over, I want to put the cards away, I can do that. And the machine knows where the cards are. Now, if you can hack that device, I can then not even be at the game, and I can relay information to the players at the table. I don't even have to tell them, I don't need to know the cards. All I need to know is you have the best hand, or that person has the best hand, you have the second best hand, right? I can actually tell you who is going to win any hand because I know the full deck. And this technology, so I have rumors, so I'm not going to name any names, that this technology, which originally came out of China, has been in use for over a decade, and it's only gotten better. And all you need, basically, is a cell phone to be able to execute this without anyone knowing. Now, contact lenses, there are contact lenses that you can see cards. Sometimes the cards are marked, but actually there's technology where you don't even need to mark the cards, where the lenses are so incredibly good, especially, contacts, glasses, all of these things, that you can figure out what people have. And this is just Yeah, this has been used for years, but it just keeps getting better. And the people I've talked to, they are legitimate businessmen who sell these to magicians for magic tricks. But who loves the technology that magicians use for magic tricks is cheaters, right? There's a very thin line between being a magician who does this for the delight of the audience and being someone who says, hey, you know what? Why just delight the audience when I can make millions of dollars by taking advantage of players who want to play with a celebrity? Because that's the other aspect of this, right? People ask, how can you play in these games if you're losing, there are allegations, and you're like, oh, but I get to play with such cool people, and it makes me feel cool, and they rope you in.
It'll cost you though, apparently.
It'll cost you very dearly.
By the way, Maria, last hour we had our friend, our legal analyst, Danny Savalas, who our audience may have seen did a magic. He's firmly on the magician-only side of that, not cheater side. I do just want to say, Maria. Also, I wonder, from your perspective, especially since you're aware of this technology. Let's just say you were in a game I know you don't do private games, which after hearing you talk about all this sounds extremely smart, but let's just say you're in a game like the one described in this indictment using this technology. How long do you think it would take for you to suspect that something was up? Is it obvious?
No, you know what? If it's a well-run game, it should not be obvious right away. And the thing about poker is over the long term, it's a game of skill, right? It's something where the best players are going to win. But in any given hand, anything can happen. There are bad beats, right? I can have aces, which is the single best starting hand in poker, and I can end up having my aces cracked. And that happens all the time, right? And it could be a huge pot. We could get it all in, beforehand, which for people who don't play poker means, all the money goes in the middle. I turn over my aces. I'm ecstatic. I should win thousands of dollars or however big the pot is. Someone else has, pocket tens, which is a much worse hand, and they hit a 10, which gives them a set, and they win, and they take all of my money. If that happens a few times, that's poker. That, anything can happen in one hand. Anything can happen in one game. But if you start seeing that the professional players, that the best players are repeatedly losing to players who don't quite know what they're doing or just aren't that good, and weird things are happening, like people keep hitting one-outers, right? When there's one card that can make their hand and they keep hitting that card. When they put in too much money with a hand that any player knows you should never really put that money in, and it's as if they knew that their card was coming. Well, guess what? They did know that card was coming. So it can take a little bit if it's done well. Now, some of the games that I've heard about over the years, not the games in these indictments, if the cheaters are good professionals, sometimes it will take you multiple weeks to figure it out because they're smart about it, right? If you can't win every single hand, you can't consistently take everyone's money, because if you do, then alarm bells will start ringing. But if you have multiple people involved, if you dump money or chips to different players, there are smart ways of cheating where you can stay under the radar for quite a while, and people will just start wondering. It's a snagging feeling, am I just, running poorly? Is the variance against me? Am I not winning because of luck, or is something more nefarious going on? And so it seems like some of these higher stakes games that people got greedy. Right. So it seems like the amount of money that they took and the way that they did it made it pretty clear that these games were cheated on a higher level.
Maria Konnikova, this is truly fascinating. As suspected, you are the coolest person ever. I'm I got to watch Molly's game this weekend. I'm in the vibe right now. Thank you so much for explaining that to us. Really interesting to hear from your perspective as everybody's talking about this story.
Thanks for having me.
There's much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the real-life horror story that played out on camera during a particularly chilling new episode of Ghost Adventures. First, though, after the break, tourists in France back in the halls of the Louvre this morning after that brazen break-in there over the weekend. Now questions are beginning to mount over how the museum even let this happen in the first place. We've got more next. We are back now with the ongoing manhunt for those daring jewel thieves who robbed Paris's Louvre Museum. Nearly a week into the investigation, questions are mounting over what appeared to be major security failures at the museum, including a surveillance camera that was facing the wrong direction. NBC News International correspondent Raf Sanchez. He has the latest from Paris on what an interesting assignment. Raf, you are there covering it for us. Good morning.
Yeah, Savannah, this was a good one. Detectives here are continuing to scour DNA evidence recovered from the Louvre, but based at least on what they're saying publicly, there is no sign of a major breakthrough at this point. And so the gang that pulled off what many people are calling the heist of the century are still very much on the run.
This morning, the Louvre jewel thieves still one step ahead of French investigators, even as a nationwide manhunt intensifies. It's now been nearly a week since the gang smashed into the Apollo Gallery, snatching crown jewels worth $102 million, before climbing back down onto one of Paris's busiest streets in broad daylight and disappearing on motorbikes. With every passing day, questions mounting about the security lapses, including why the only camera in the area was facing the opposite direction from the balcony the thieves climbed up. We headed to the French National Assembly to meet Alexandre Portier, the lawmaker leading a parliamentary investigation into the heist. He says there was too little investment in security cameras and police contingency plans. Do you have confidence that French law enforcement will be able to find the thieves, find the jewels? I have absolute trust the police will do everything possible to find them, he says. However, there's a risk, I fear, that these jewels have already been cut into pieces. Adding, he worries that even if all the precious stones were found, it may be impossible to reassemble the treasures. These may be lost for all humanity. The Louvre isn't just a French museum, it's the leading museum of the world, he says. The brazen heist has captured the global public imagination, with online sleuths offering their own theories.
That this group does very well organized robberies.
Some comparing it to the Netflix show Lupin, about the theft of a priceless necklace from the Louvre.
We're gonna steal it.
And this morning, tourists streaming in, ahead of what's expected to be another busy weekend.
What was it like being inside after the big break-up?
Well, to be honest, you could barely tell. They've kind of closed off the area, I think, where the robbery was.
You will never think, actually, somebody could break in such a secure space.
And it may be that stealing the jewels, Savannah, is actually the simple part compared to selling them, right? The whole world is right now looking for these treasures. And experts say it's very possible that the gang plans to sit on these jewels at least until the heat dies away. It's likely, these experts say, that they wouldn't have gone into the heist without a plan to sell the crown jewels on. And so this is likely a sophisticated operation prepared to play the long game. Savannah.
I need to anticipate that they knew that there would be a media stormer on this one. All right, Raf Sanchez from Paris for us. Lucky you. Thank you very much. Well, now to the new Ghost Adventures episode that will give you chills, but for all the wrong reasons. Back in March, the wife of TV star Aaron Goodwin was arrested on allegations that she was plotting to have him killed. Now we're seeing the chilling moment he found out about his wife's arrest and her plans as the cameras were rolling. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has this.
Oh my God, dude. I feel like something's happening.
In the latest episode of Ghost Adventures, a dramatic discovery caught on camera. And no, not of a paranormal sighting.
Suddenly, Aaron gets a notification on his phone, and we can sense something is wrong.
Dude.
This is the moment when ghost hunter Aaron Goodwin finds out police were at his Las Vegas home, arresting his then wife for what turned out to be a murder for hire plot to have him killed.
You all right? You okay? Bro, the police are in my house. What? I gotta go outside.
It's fine, but I'm not staying in here by myself.
The camera's rolling when Goodwin leaves in the middle of shooting in California to take the call.
At this point, we will not be showing any further footage, but it is at this moment that Aaron receives a call from the police that his wife has been arrested.
This episode finally airing Wednesday night on Discovery Plus, months after the March 6th arrest of Goodwin's now ex-wife, Victoria Goodwin, for conspiring to have Aaron assassinated.
It's a haunted house.
While the couple had appeared happy together on social media, police records show Victoria was having an affair with an incarcerated man in Florida, Grant Amato, who is currently serving a life sentence for killing his family.
I would sentence you to life imprisonment without any possibility of parole.
Amato's cell phone was seized, and on it, authorities say incriminating text messages showing how the two were plotting to have Aaron killed. Am I a bad person? Victoria texted Amato, because I chose to end his existence, not divorce. Other messages show Victoria telling Amato exactly where her then husband would be staying in Barstow, California, and Amato texting an unidentified person who police say would be taking care of the situation. Police say the two also had more than $11,000 set aside for the hitman when the job was finished. Victoria took a plea deal and was later sentenced to up to 7.5 years in prison. Aaron broke down in tears while reading his victim impact statement, telling the judge he cries every day, now goes to therapy, and never feels safe. Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
Wow, we have got quite the lineup of stories for you today. All right, thank you very much, Liz, for that. Coming up, controversy caught on camera in Los Angeles. When we come back, the viral TikTok creator who's now finding himself at the center of the same ICE operations that he documented for his hundreds of thousands of followers. That's next on Morning News Now. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with a new endorsement in the New York City mayoral race, which is making news all over the country. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us with more. Hey, Julie.
Yeah, hey, Savannah, good morning. We are starting in New York. It's a big development in the mayoral race because the current mayor, Eric Adams, is endorsing former Governor Andrew Cuomo weeks ahead of the closely watched election coming up on November 4th. A spokesperson for Adams says he intends to campaign alongside Cuomo in this final stretch. Remember, Adams dropped out of the race last month as Cuomo looks to defeat Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani, who has consistently held a double-digit lead. Now to Washington, where President Trump has pardoned the founder of Binance. He's one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world. Changpeng Zhao, known as CZ, pled guilty in 2023 to enabling money laundering while leading that company. Trump's decision to pardon Zhao is being met with criticism from Democrats, who just this morning blasted the president for abusing his power, highlighting the Trump family's own crypto venture worth billions of dollars. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended the pardon and accused the Biden administration of a, quote, war on cryptocurrency. And finally, this morning in Virginia, where Democratic lawmakers have entered the redistricting fight we're seeing play out in multiple states around the country. A top Democrat there announcing they plan to redraw their congressional maps to boost the party ahead of next year's midterm elections, a process that could begin as soon as Monday. Virginia is the only state, Savannah, where Democrats are taking up, or only the second state, I should say, mid-decade redistricting after California. And it comes after President Trump pushed Republicans to redraw their maps in several red states. And that is a look at what is making news in politics this morning. Savannah?
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you very much. Well, a TikToker who posted videos of ICE raids in Los Angeles to hundreds of thousands of followers has been injured himself after an immigration arrest turned into a shooting. He's now been charged with assaulting a federal officer. NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky has the details.
In Los Angeles, the man at the center of ICE's latest controversy, shot in the elbow by authorities and now charged with assaulting a federal officer, is a prominent TikToker who's been documenting ICE raids all around the city. Carlitos Ricardo Parias, known to many as El Señor Richard or TikTok Quero, has been posting videos of local police activity since last summer. But recently began highlighting ICE operations, all while building an audience of more than 100,000 followers. But there was something many watching didn't know. Prosecutors say Parias, a 44-year-old father of two, is undocumented himself. The criminal complaint says federal agents had him under surveillance and tried to arrest him on an immigration warrant. When they boxed in his vehicle and ordered him out, prosecutors say he refused to comply, driving forward and backward, hitting two law enforcement vehicles. That's when one federal agent opened fire, prosecutors say, striking Parias and a deputy marshal in the hand.
What strikes you in this attempt to take your client into custody?
It's the use of force.
Carlos Jurado is Patias's immigration attorney, telling me his client is no stranger to the very community he was arrested in.
This man is out there day after day recording any police or criminal activity that's going on in that neighborhood, which that area of LA has a void. A lot of members of that community, they depend on him for knowledge as to what's going on around them.
Jurado added he tried to speak to his client Tuesday night in a hospital, but says he was barred from doing so. An ICE spokesperson didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. But it hasn't stopped supporters from gathering outside that medical facility.
I believe it's in an effort to limit the information being put out, to keep people informed and aware and safe.
Last August, Patias was honored by a Los Angeles City Council member for his, quote, unwavering commitment to keeping the South LA community informed, empowered, and protected. For the man whose mission it was to document his often underserved community, his story now under the national spotlight. Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
All right, coming up, check yourself. A new push in several states to roll back the use of those frustrating self-checkout counters. But could it actually lead to higher prices at your favorite retailers? We will take a closer look next. We are back with some breaking economic data for you this Friday morning. Inflation rose by 3% year over year in September and by 0.3% month over month. This report was due to come out last week, but was delayed. You guessed it, due to the ongoing government shutdown. We got our economic dream team. There we go, our Bobble Boys, NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung, and Investopedia's editor-in-chief Caleb Silver. Thanks to both of you. Always great sports, but you know what? You do have your own graphics, so that's pretty cool. Okay, Brian, let's start with you. Over at the big board, walk us through the numbers.
Yeah, well, the numbers show us that inflation is showing prices rising in this country still. Again, what we're talking about here, it was a 0.3% increase on a month-to-month basis. That's between August and September. But economists like to look at the yearly rate of inflation. How much did prices rise between September of this year and September of last year? And that figure is 3%. That was a little bit lower than what economists had expected. In fact, one economist I just heard from said that this was a surprisingly weak inflation report, which is a good thing. You want inflation to be weak. You don't want inflation to be strong. If we look at the August to August period, it is 2.9%. So this is a slight uptick. But again, economists were expecting, probably in part because of the tariffs, for this number to be higher. But again, 3% still historically low, especially when you take a look at this chart over time. That 3% figure is a lot lower than that some of peak inflation we saw in the summer of 2022.
And Caleb, sounds like some good news there, lower than expected. Give me a reaction.
Yeah, well, first of all, we've been waiting a little while for this data, but it is sort of weaker than expected, more smoke than fire still with tariffs, which is surprising because when you go shopping, it feels like things have gotten more expensive, but they haven't bled their way into the numbers yet. But Brian's going to take us through the categories. The Bureau of Labor Statistics saying, though, gas, big driver of inflation this month. When we look at the services part of the economy, too, airfare, things like that, those have gotten a lot more expensive.
Yeah, Brian, take it away. Break down categories.
Yeah, so if we unpack this, we're taking a look at the three main categories: food, energy, and shelter, the cost of putting a roof over your head. We're now talking about monthly changes. How much did prices rise between August and September? Food price inflation actually decelerating a little bit, only up by 0.2%. It was up almost 0.5% in August. If we talk about, as Caleb was just saying, prices did go up by 1.5% in 1 month, but there is reason to think that this number will be lower in the October report because we've seen a lot of prices at the pump go down as a result of the switch to the winter blend, as well as less demand with fewer people out on the roads. Shelter costs, this is a big one, also decelerating in terms of the rate of inflation, up only 0.2%. That is a big reason why we saw that headline number actually a little bit below estimates, because people thought that the cost of housing would be a lot higher in this September report.
All right, Caleb, the Fed.
5 days, 5 hours, and 17 minutes from now, and it looks like there's a 96% or so chance the Fed does another baby cut, quarter-point cut here. But the Fed is actually 96%. So it's likely. Yeah. But the Fed is not able to see labor data yet. So we haven't had a jobs report in a minute due to the shutdown of the government. So the Fed doesn't want to cut rates too aggressively because that could stoke inflation with no idea of what's happening in the labor market. But anecdotally, we know the labor market's still pretty weak. It's not like it picked up steam in the last couple of months. So the Fed meeting next week. Very interesting.
But Brian, by the way, we mentioned this is delayed because of the government shutdown. Is there any concern over accuracy because of the government shutdown?
Yeah, so this particular report was supposed to come out 9 days ago. Actually, the Bureau of Labor Statistics had to call back people to finish this report. It's important to note, though, that this particular September data was collected prior to the government shutdown beginning in the first week of October. So these numbers really aren't to be called into question. But we have to remember the concern is about the October report, which we're not supposed to receive until next month. But again, the story there is that they have to survey all of these numbers, 80,000 goods and services across 75 urban areas, 23,000 retail establishments. If the BLS was not working in full force, they can't get that data. That's going to be a concern for the October numbers when we get them next month, if the government reopens.
Absolutely. Dream team. Kayla, Brian, thank you both very much. Well, let's stay with business headlines for you. Alaska Airlines says its planes are back in the skies after a major tech outage. NBC's Emily Lorsch, of course, joins us live with that and other money headlines. Hey, Emily.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Alaska Airlines is working to get things back on track after a tech outage grounded flights at all airports yesterday. The company's regional arm, Horizon Air, was also impacted. This marks the second major IT disruption for the airline this year, following a similar grounding in July. The outage comes just as the company reported its quarterly earnings, which showed that the summer incident did, in fact, weigh on its results. And one of the biggest soccer stars in the world is staying in Miami. Lionel Messi announcing he's extending his contract with Inter Miami through 2028. Messi was Major League Soccer's MVP last season and is the overwhelming favorite to win the award again this year. That would make him only the second two-time winner and the first to win it in back-to-back years. This deal means he'll be part of the club's move to a new stadium next year and is expected to boost ticket sales. And finally, the Chicago Bears are gearing up to leave Chicago. The team plans to march away from Soldier Field, their official home for more than a century. But more than $350 million in renovation debt is staying behind, according to Bloomberg. The Bears plan to touch down at their new den in the suburbs, but that's not a done deal quite yet, as the team is still seeking public funding. But if it does go through, construction could start as early as this year. A move that's stirring up controversy in more ways than one, Savannah.
Absolutely. Emily, thank you so much. Well, now let's get to a hot button issue that everyone seems to have an opinion on. Those self-checkout machines. You've seen them everywhere. Supermarkets, clothing stores. Well, some shoppers are so frustrated with them that some states now are taking action. Our friend Brian Chung, who was just with us, NBC News business and data correspondent, brings us this story.
Hey there, love them or hate them, plenty of stores have self-checkout stations that allow shoppers to ring up merchandise by themselves. Massachusetts is now the latest state considering regulations amid so many complaints about the tech, raising an even bigger question. Are retailers ready to bring back cashiers?
Self-checkout kiosks are a common sight at nearly every store. And so are frustrated customers, having a hard time getting them to work.
Please scan your item.
I'm talking to a robot.
Please scan your item.
I just did.
Not only testing the patience of shoppers.
I hate self-checkout. I hate it. $2.49. Please remove the unscanned item.
And now those complaints could be leading to new legislation. Massachusetts lawmakers are proposing a bill that would limit the number of self-checkout lanes at grocery stores and require a designated employee to monitor them.
It's good for consumers. People get frustrated with them. It's good for the working people, and it's good for our communities to be able to have jobs that aren't just thrown away.
Rhode Island has considered similar action. And last month, the city of Long Beach in California took its own action to regulate self-checkout machines in an effort to reduce shoplifting. The ordinance rules led some chains in Long Beach, including Target, to shut those lanes down completely. Opponents say that's exactly the problem.
Self-checkout was always visualized as being a convenience for consumers. And that's what we want to make sure that consumers still have access to.
Some argue adding rules to self-checkout will lead to longer lines, more staffing shortages, and could even drive up prices. Some retailers have already changed their approach to self-checkout. Target says they've added more cashiers while also limiting the number of items for its self-checkout lanes, noting that shrink, an industry term that includes theft, went down since those changes. A longtime thorn in the side of retailers.
Basically, everybody on Earth is stealing from self-checkouts.
One study from Capital One Shopping found that 15% of shoppers admitted to using self-checkout to steal.
all pointing to a retail industry that may consider bringing regular people back as they increasingly hit cancel on those self-checkout machines.
Walmart has also made adjustments to staffed and self-checkout lanes in the last year, with a spokesperson telling Today at the time it's at the discretion of individual store managers to decide what works best for employees and customers. We reached out to Walmart, who did not provide an update. Back to you.
All right, Brian, thank you. Coming up, we finally made it to Friday. That can only mean one thing here on Morning News Now. When we come back, we've got your front row seat to the latest and greatest from the world of Hollywood and beyond. Everything you simply cannot miss this weekend. Stay with us. Happy Friday. It's here, the finish line. Let's jump right into your weekly can't miss list. This is, of course, you know the drill. A look at all the movies and the shows that you got to see this weekend. Joining me this week is NBC New York digital and reporter friend of the show, of course, our friend Kay Ingram's here. Kay, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you. Okay, so we want to talk about Springsteen. I mean, everybody's talking about this. I am so excited to see the title character here who plays him. Tell us about this movie.
Jeremy Allen White. Let me tell you, he is the boss. He's so good in this. I watched it last night. It's incredible. But to set the scene for you, we are in the 1980s, and by this point, he's already on his 6th studio album. So he's famous, but what's great about this film is it's not just him working on his latest album, which would be Nebraska at the time. It's also following him working through some, rooted issues from his childhood, because he's from New Jersey. So it's set there, and he's dealing with a lot of things, and we see just the inspiration behind it and how he works through it. Jeremy, he mentioned that he learned how to play guitar in 7 months, which I found so impressive.
Yeah, and I hear he's like amazing at it, which is that is so cool that actors do that they like just get to learn a whole new skill when they're doing a movie.
I know, and he crushes it. So that is in theaters, and it's so good, and even the boss himself signed off on it.
Great. I was going to ask that. Good to hear. I'm sure that's going to be such a big one. Okay, the next one, Regretting You. Also a big one, because for people who don't know, this is based on a book by an author, Colleen Hoover. She is like a massively successful author. Everybody's reading her books. You might have heard of It Ends With Us. There was all the on-screen and off-screen drama with that one. But what are audiences saying about this one? I know that a lot of people are looking forward to it.
Yeah, I would say audiences are saying they're not regretting watching it. Like, granted, it's coming out today, right? But I did see it yesterday, and seriously, no regrets. It's so fun. It's about complex family dynamics. It's rooted in love, but also untruths. And so we watch this family try to navigate some of those, a mother-daughter relationship, a love interest. Look, it is a rom-com, so you're going to get what you expect from it. You're going to get the laughs.
There's like a real melodrama going on.
No, it's a wild ride for sure. Like,
okay, great.
Jaw
I
on
do
the
want
ground.
to see this. Actually, I should read it first and then see it. Okay,
let's go.
Begonia. I know we should. Begonia. I'm so excited about this because this is Emma Stone reuniting with the director of Poor Things and The Favorite. Her and this, they do like the cruelest stuff together. I mean, Poor Things was incredible. What are people saying about Begonia?
I know. I think I was here talking about Poor Things with you when it came out. So 5th time of them working together, and in this, you essentially have 2 conspiracy theory obsessed young men who kidnap the CEO pharmaceutical CEO, played by Emma Stone.
Okay,
but
I didn't know that. That's what it's about.
Yeah, and so they're essentially kidnapping her, thinking she's an alien, and so it takes on a really wild ride. We'll see where it goes from there. You've also got Alicia Silverstone in it. So are these guys clueless? Unclear. Jesse Plemons.
Ooh.
Yeah, and she actually,
I remember when she did this.
She did it for real.
That's what I'm saying. Actors who commit. We love to see it. Okay, everybody's talking about streaming Nobody Wants This, the 2nd season of this adorable show on Netflix.
Yes, so Nobody Wants This. I don't know. They might have to change the title because people are wanting it.
And we wanted the 2nd season so bad.
Yes, including our producer Ariana, who's already excited to start binge watching it. She told me. But yes, it's on Netflix, and essentially, if you missed the first one, it is this, rom-com. We've got this couple. Are they going to be together? Are they not going to be together? Season 1 really left us with a cliffhanger. So this season is all about, well, how are they going to do it? Before it was, are they going to do it? We don't know. We'll see. So it's good. You've got Kristen Bell, you've got Adam Brody, Seth Rogen, Leighton Meester. They make
Loop, right? I love her.
A lot of guest stars. So
it's a great show. Okay, also something a little bit more intense. This is from a friend of ours. Noah Oppenheim used to be the president of NBC News here. Now he's so Hollywood and doing amazing with A House of Dynamite, a political thriller with an Oscar-winning director. Tell us about this.
So in this, the White House is essentially scrambling to figure out, what to do about this incoming missile. They don't know where it's from. They don't know what to do about it, but they're trying to figure it out. So if you're into a political thriller, that's this. Idris Elba, tonight, Rebecca Ferguson, Anthony Ramos. You've also got Renee Lee Goldsberry, who I love. And so, yeah, Director Catherine Bigelow. It's her first feature.
I'm gonna like make some chili. I'm gonna be cozy, and I'm watching that movie tonight.
Yes,
in case y'all were wondering.
Nuclear missile.
Finally, last question. Only like 20 seconds here. Ben Stiller's new documentary.
Yes. Okay. So Ben Stiller, you know, he's got his father, of course, who passed, Jerry Stiller, who I love, his mom as well, and this is essentially paying homage to the two of them, an iconic comedy duo, and essentially, you know, he's looking back on his life, his childhood. You know, we're getting diaries, we're getting home videos, and so this is looking at their impact on pop culture and his life from their son.
Kay, thank you so much. Great to have you with us. Happy watching. Happy Friday. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now. The news continues, though, right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.